Millions of Americans are expected to travel and gather to celebrate July 4th. That's a lot different, of course, from last year. At the White House, President Biden is hosting more than 1,000 people for a party. But the Delta variant is spreading. Experts worry it could cause a new spike in cases among unvaccinated people. Joining us to talk about this particular issue in COVID is Yasmeen Abutaleb. She's national health policy reporter for the Washington Post and author of Nightmare Scenario Inside the Trump Administration's Response to the Pandemic That Changed History. Yasmeen, thank you so much for joining us. President Biden missed his COVID vaccine, or will miss it, his COVID vaccine goal. He isn't far off, though. That being said, vaccination rates in the South and among Republicans is a big part of this issue. What can President Biden do to convince more people to get vaccinated? And is it at all possible to separate the politics from this?
The White House is pretty focused right now on smaller scale efforts on finding local doctors, community leaders to convince people to get vaccinated. I think they recognize that the people who want to listen to the president and what he has to say about vaccinations have gone and got them, and now they need to take a very different localized approach. And to be clear, it's not only people who are resistant to getting vaccinated that haven't gotten vaccinated. It's also communities of color and other vulnerable communities and hard to reach ones where maybe there isn't as easy of access to a doctor's office. So that's also a big part of the effort here. I think in terms of the politics, it's impossible to separate them because a lot of people who are resistant to getting vaccines, there are sort of two camps. There are the people who are anti-vaxxers and are resistant to all types of vaccines, and then the people who kind of mistrust this process for a number of reasons. The COVID vaccines were developed in record time. There are all sorts of conspiracy theories about the vaccines, and then of course a big part of it is the politicization of scientists and science, and particularly Dr. Fauci. I mean, he's gotten so tied into some of the anti-vax stuff and the people resistant to the coronavirus vaccine specifically.
And talk a little bit about the Delta variant and the challenges ahead specifically with that.
Well, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky just held a briefing yesterday where she said that the Delta variant was hyper-transmissible. It's clear that the White House and the health officials in the administration are extremely worried about this. The good news is that the vaccines do seem to protect against the variant, but the bigger concern here is I think we've seen over the last several months, the more the virus is able to spread, the more dangerous the variants become. The good thing is they're not necessarily more deadly, but they do become more transmissible and easier to spread. And even if vaccinated people are protected against the Delta variant, the concern is that if it's allowed to spread, what variant is going to emerge from that? The more this virus can spread, it's a highly efficient virus, the more it can become more efficient and more transmissible, and we just don't know what form that's going to take. So right now the vaccines are effective, but there is a lot of concern about outbreaks among unvaccinated populations, especially in the fall when people start moving indoors a bit more, and especially because we've started relaxing so many restrictions.
And Ayesha, I want to come to you on really the COVID economy. The U.S. added 850,000 jobs in June. That beat economists' expectations. What does that tell you about kind of where this is going and the recovery effort that the White House is dealing with?
Well, the White House basically took a victory lap today. They said, overall they've created 3 million jobs. And that is, a record level. Of course, they don't mention that the U.S. had lost a record level of jobs, and so that's why they've created 3 million. And even now, millions are out of work. So I think that they are making that argument. The issue for them is that as they're trying to get all this funding for infrastructure and all these other things, with the economy not in a free fall, that makes it a bit harder to justify or to make the case for trillions of dollars in spending. So they're going to run up against more opposition for that. So that's part of what, it's kind of like a catch-22 with this economy.
It's a tough thing that they're dealing with, trying to balance the economy while also trying to balance COVID. And there are even talk of people having to start wearing masks again. I asked the White House COVID task force about putting on masks, and they say for now, we don't have to go back to that if you're vaccinated. But it is a very, very big worry, so we'll have to keep our eye on that.